Public Protector Kholeka Gcaleka's 2024 to 2025 reports paint a bleak picture when it comes to governance and service delivery across government departments. The reports found that in some instances, citizens were billed for sanitation and refuse removal services that they did not receive. The Gauteng Public Service Commission's Vusumuzi Mavuso joins us for more on this. Very good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you for your time. I'm sure you're aware and you're familiarized yourself with the report from the Public Protector's investigations. The findings, once again, painting a very grim picture of the state of public service delivery in municipalities and in government departments as well. What do you think needs to be done to improve this?
A very good afternoon to you and your viewers. And then, well, should we say Happy New Year, belated as it may be. Thanks for the request for the interview. I must say that I didn't have an opportunity to go through the entire report because it came about when most of us were still on leave. And yeah, if there's any sound and noise behind, please be mindful of the fact that my house has become a site of construction. So I was busy, but I thought this interview was quite important. In looking into the report, I think I want to break it down into about 4 parts if I do have the time. For example, one of the critical issues is to be able to look into the improvements of service delivery. Yes, indeed, there has been lapses insofar as service delivery is concerned, and the Public Service Commission is really intent in making sure that we deal with this particular scourge. For example, there ought to be, and there's a need to change the ethos, the attitude, and the general culture of the public servants within the public service, and there ought to be a very intentional approach to improve productivity and performance. This, we believe, is absolutely important. Flowing from that, of course, is to be able for us to strengthen what we call discipline and consequence management within the public service. We know that we operate within a very highly regulated environment, and as such, there's also very strong labor unions which are participating within the space. However, in our engagements with labor, I think there's an understanding and appreciation that things can be as usual, it can be business as usual. We need to up the ante and make sure that we improve on productivity and performance. The third point, which I think I need to mention upon, relates to what we normally do and what has to happen, especially through the public representatives. In the main, they need to engage with the public. Public participation should not just be something that is coming about as a by the by. If you are elected, you need to be able to have a particular constituency that you are accountable to and be able to give feedback from time to time. That will assist in making sure that we deal with issues pertaining to service delivery. For example, when you look into municipalities, in the main, you do have ward councillors and councillors generally who represent specific individuals or communities. And it becomes absolutely imperative that they do their work and they actually get dirty and go onto the ground and deal with those matters and engage with communities. The next point, obviously, is particularly within the public service, be it in municipalities, at the national, provincial level, even in the state-owned entities, there's a need to get the right people for the right job with the requisite skills and suitable qualifications. This talks to the question of proficiency, but most importantly, there's a question of professionalization, of ensuring that we professionalize the public service. We as the Public Service Commission, together with the National School of Government and the Public Service and Administration Department, embarked on an exercise to ensure that the professionalization framework, which has been approved by both Cabinet and has been submitted to Parliament, is internalized and operationalized. It's absolutely imperative because it talks about meritocracy, that people should be appointed on merit and nothing else, that people have to be fit for purpose if they were to be in the public service. For us, that's absolutely imperative, and we can't really compromise on that. The final point, of course, that I need to embark upon is around rooting of corruption. It has become a scourge. It's a cancer that has really besotten the public service, and we really have to ensure that we root it out completely. It's a process on its own, but I think we're on the right track in dealing with these matters. And how we deal with it, as part and parcel of the Forum of Institutions Supporting Democracy, which includes the Public Protector, your Human Rights Commission, and other agencies, we collaborate and share information and intelligence and make sure that we make follow-ups and ensure that wherever we pick up any of these matters, we can be able to submit our findings and reports to the relevant authorities to be able to do what they need to do, and making sure that those who really are worthy of wearing orange overalls, that is done with greater speed and greater promptitude.
Yes. I want to take you back to one of the points you mentioned, improvement of productivity and performance. And I'll take an excerpt from the Public Protector's report, which shows that multiple government entities have overlapping responsibilities, convoluted processes, and poor communication that's hindering effective solutions. Again, going back to the point of productivity and performance, are public servants understaffed? Because this is what the report somehow suggests, that, you know, there's need for more people to be hired.
There are a number of elements to this. The first one, of course, is that the state having, should I say, a dearth of resources, finances, and the economy has not been doing exceptionally well. That has actually hampered in making sure that people are appointed into positions as and when required. There are a number of positions which are not filled in virtually all the departments across the state. That is an issue that we've picked up because of resources or lack thereof. The second point, of course, is that we tend to find people who tend to be overly stretched. One person would be doing a number of jobs, acting in another position whilst having a substantive position. That in itself is a challenge on its own. But what should not really be forgotten is the fact that there's always been a lapse in doing the right things for all the right reasons. It's important to make sure that, as I said, where the productivity is not improving, there could be issues pertaining to performance. And it's more the reason why I emphasize the point of consequence management, of making sure that if people don't do their job, they're not worth it to be in the public service. And one needs to do something about it. And it's absolutely imperative that we deal with those issues quite systematically. But as part and parcel of what we want to achieve in making sure that we professionalize the public service, the National School of Government ensures that those who come into the public service have to be properly inducted. They have to be onboarded accordingly for them to be able to understand the import of the public service and what is expected from them. That in itself will ensure that during the probation period, you can be able to assess whether a person is really ready, mentally and otherwise, even emotionally, to be in the public service. We believe that when we put these matters into place, we can be able to provide what we call a game changer in having the right people for the right job. Yeah. That for us is important. It is balanced with productivity and with performance, because you would have made sure that everyone is properly socialized to do their work accordingly.
Yeah. And getting into 2025, Mr. Mavuso, how would you envisage and define the role of Public Service Commission in the monitoring? You speak of improving public service delivery across all the government departments. What are some of those priorities and objectives that you would like to see materializing in 2025?
Perhaps I can take you a step backwards into 2024 as to what is it that we've started on. We've embarked on a number of processes, amongst others, doing research on systemic issues hampering service delivery, such as government use of ICT to deliver services. Interestingly, the Ministry of Communications and Digital Technologies has requested the Public Service Commission to conduct an investigation onto what is hampering public service, especially within the SITA, in other words, the State Information and Technology Agency, because a number of problems have been picked up there. And you can imagine, even the Minister of Home Affairs raised issues around SITA, that there are glitches and problems that cannot really be overcome because of the manner in which it has been formulated and what has been happening. So ICT is absolutely crucial, especially in this era of the fourth industrial revolution, to be able to have the necessary tools to make sure that there's ease of work and there's speed and promptitude to do our work. That research has been conducted, and of course, we're moving with great speed in making sure that we can be able to provide solutions around that. The next point that we deal with is to investigate labor relations matters for improved productivity and service delivery. These are things that we said, and we've put an agenda for ourselves at the Public Service Commission to deal with quite systematically in this new year. The third point, of course, is the investigation of service delivery complaints and the resolution thereof. For example, we do have the National Anti-Corruption Hotline, 0800701701, which we normally receive complaints. will always receive issues. Sometimes it will be grievances. In some instances, it will be matters pertaining to corruption. Once we receive this information, we process it as promptly as we can so that we can then be able to provide a resolution thereof. But there's a bigger issue that I need to mention. It's around good governance. Section 195 of the South African Constitution is unequivocal on values and principles governing public administration in its broadest context. And I'm saying in its broadest context because currently there's a bill before Parliament that is going to make sure that the mandate of the Public Service Commission is extended to local government and state-owned entities. As it were, currently we're only confined to provincial and national departments and not entities per se. Once that comes into being, once it kicks in, it will afford us an opportunity to broaden the scope and deal with the public administration. But it's absolutely imperative to appreciate that the Constitution acts as nothing else but our own GPS, guiding all public officials on good governance. And the Public Service Commission is also mandated to promote the constitutional values and principles amongst them. And of course, it's important to ensure that we set a very high standard of professional ethics, making sure that there's proper and economic utilization of resources in a very effective and efficient manner. For us, that's absolutely important, but it can't detract from the essence of accountability, of transparency, and making sure that we have good human resource management within the public service. These points that I'm making form the bedrock of the Public Service Commission's work to instill good governance at individual and institutional level. For us, it's absolutely imperative. These are non-negotiables, and we just have to embark on them with a much more intentional approach, with more aggression, but most importantly, making sure that we can have and put service delivery on a much more higher pedestal.
And how would you look at accountability when it comes to meritocracy, as you were talking about, in corporate governance, also issues of corruption, especially in the context of public administration, as you've been describing?
Taking you backwards a little bit, the issue pertaining to meritocracy is a very fundamental point because it actually presupposes that whoever is going to be appointed in the public service is fit for purpose. It does not deal with one's politics, but it's about you being a South African, being patriotic, committed to the Constitution, and wanting to make a contribution to the advancement of our country and whatever it is we stand for. That is what we deal with insofar as meritocracy is concerned. In other words, it's got nothing to do with narrow and parochial interests that may be driven by either party interests or otherwise. For us, it's important. That in itself informs us that we can be able to deal with good governance because when people go through the process of the National School of Government, having to be properly socialized, we can be able to find the best acumen and the right attitude to be able to be in the public service. What more can we get if this is not good enough?
Yeah, but I'm just trying to understand the issue of accountability, because I think when you have a candidate or a personnel within, your department who is supposed to be there, who's gone through all the verification process, but then there's issues of corruption, and the Public Protector's report says there's still issues to do with lack of accountability when there has been issues that have been reported that need to be handled.
One of the critical points that we've raised and that we normally embark upon is that at the point at which we discover some form of maladministration, malfeasance, or otherwise, these matters are normally reported to the right authorities, as I've said. But the first port of call would be the executive authorities themselves. In other words, your ministers, your MECs, your premiers, to be able to say, hey, there are these matters that require urgent attention. We're giving you timelines. Please make sure that you give account as to what you're going to do, what you've done by this particular date. That's part and parcel of accountability, of making sure that they're held accountable, because whenever they took the oath of office as executive authorities, it was to the Constitution. And if these matters are not taken on board, we are of the view that their principals will have to kick them out. They are not worthy to be within the public service. That's our standpoint. And of course, we speak truth to power. We engage, we go quite robustly in raising these issues. Let me give you an illustration of one of the things that we would do or that we've done in the past financial year. We would have what we call the civic forums, whereupon we would actually call communities to a meeting for them to be able to raise issues. But what we do as a preliminary point is to go to the communities and ask them the issues that really affect them most. Once we've received the issues, we go to the respective departments and say, these are the matters that we've raised or that have been picked up, whether it's home affairs, whether it is human settlements and what have you. We then call them into a meeting, all those stakeholders, to say, please give account. What have you done with the matters that we submitted to yourselves? Here is the community here. Respond to them directly. We found that to be quite a very important point, because when we went to Chitale in the in Limpopo, we went to Fraserburg in the Northern Cape, we went to Mandeni in KZN. We received resounding applause for having come up with the civic forum processes, because they were able to ask direct questions and receive questions to receive answers to the questions they raised much more earlier. And a lot of things have been corrected. Service delivery issues were dealt with quite promptly, and we think it's a way to go. It's quite different from what you have as the in-business, because ours is more proactive. We go first, find out what the issues are, and then call those who are supposed to account to be able to give account, having given them ample time to respond to those matters and be able to give and provide timelines. For us, it's a very good tool of accountability, which we believe can be replicated in other instances.
Very well then, Mr. Mavuso, thank you for taking out your time to speak to us in this festive season. I hope you get to enjoy the rest of your holiday, and all the best with the construction at your home. Thank you once again, sir, for speaking to us. Mr. Vusumuzi Mavuso is the Gauteng Public Service Commissioner.